That's Sloaney on 700 WLW. You've seen these ads all over the place for Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro and all sorts of sound like fake names or maybe something that's in a Snoop Dogg song. But nonetheless, their weekly injections are going to help people lose weight in addition to diabetes. But the problem is, will insurance ever cover this stuff? And should they, relative to weight loss, which if you can control your weight, you're going to stave off a whole bunch of problems later in life or even in midlife for that matter that are all weight related. Why insurance is reluctant to do this is beyond me, but maybe the guy with the answers. Joining the show once again is our healthcare advisor. That's Paul Seegert from PCS Advisors, and they advise businesses on the healthcare decisions and keeping their costs down and the like. Paul, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. So, it seems like, when it comes to insurance, if I wind up eating myself into multiple medications that I need to maintain my cholesterol and blood pressure and all those things, would it be cheaper and easier for them to give me money up front or to incentivize me to lose weight in the first place?
You would think so. It's a problem we have to figure out. We've got 2 out of 3 people in our country that are either overweight or obese now, and it drives 85% or so of all the spending in a fifth of our economy that's healthcare.
I mean, some companies do. I know we have a pretty robust plan if you want to, lose weight and stuff like that. But clearly, the whole gym membership being subsidized thing, it's, I know you just ran 4 miles, you said. I plan on getting a boxing workout in later on today. But we're outliers. Most people don't do that. And I get it. It sucks. It hurts, especially the older you get, the more pain you're in. People run the Flying Pig Marathon, and I look at that and go, wow, 26 miles, that's a lot of running right there. I'm going to be sore for a month. And we generally don't do that kind of stuff. But now we have the ability to take a drug that's going to maybe do the same thing. It seems like we should be throwing a lot of money into this.
Well, and it would cost a lot of money. That's kind of the crux of the whole thing, or the issue at hand, is that we have these drugs that have been starting to use these off label, but they were really for diabetes people. Mm-hmm. And the cost is, let's call it about $6,000 a month to put someone on one of these drugs. Right. Once they're on it, they really have to stay on it for life. When you get off of them, the weight comes back. Generally speaking. So you're talking about a $70,000 added expense per person we put on it. And if you can multiply that out times 2/3 of the population, it's a huge pile of money.
But you're on drugs already for chronic conditions, and I get that cost at $6,000 a month. But my point is, if this gets scaled up, and this in the medical field, like anything, right? It's the early adopters cost a fortune. The more people use it, the production costs come down. They continue to invest in R&D, and then the price of that pill drops to like 40 cents. Now you're talking a different story, right? How long does that usually take to happen?
Well, it depends. I mean, we have rules that say, okay, it should have some period of exclusivity, and so that they can get the return on their investment creating the drug, and then after which time, you could have generics, basically. Right. But look at insulin. Insulin, they were able to protect insulin with just by slightly improving it. It resets the clock on your patent. They strung that out for 100 years. Humira, since the 1970s, we just are finally getting biosimilars in this country. So it isn't necessarily as cut and dried. Once it's a big blockbuster drug, they do a really good job of protecting it with patent thickets and a bunch of other stuff that we allow, but other countries don't.
Gotcha.
Which is why we pay so much more for drugs.
Oh, I see. So it'd be easier to go to Mexico to get the drug at some point, is what you're saying. Or Canada.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Whichever one you're closest
to. That makes sense. Well, you want insurance, not insurance, but you want pharmaceutical companies often get a bad rap. Typically you hear that story. Oh my God, this kid's going to die if he doesn't get this pill. It's $50,000 a week, and it's horrible how they're gouging people. But you got to look at the economy of it, though, too, as these companies are in to make a profit, and they do the R&D to make a profit and to get into things like this. That this literally is this is the Rosetta Stone, if you will, right? So you look at this and go, wow, this is incredible. It could solve obesity epidemic in America, but it's going to be really expensive to start. I think the companies deserve to make that money to recoup all the money they spend on research and development for generations to come up with something like this.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And then you have to weigh it out and say, okay, if I'm running a health plan or I'm a big insurance company, where is the line that we draw? Because there certainly are going to be cases where it is more, the numbers justify it at some point. at some BMI level or whatever. And there actually are some studies being done right now that are going to, their hope is that they will be able to show that being on these drugs then does reduce all these other illnesses, chronic illnesses, and the costs associated with them. If we can prevent a couple $1 million of claims down the road, then it'll make sense.
Right,
so
right.
Where do we draw the line? That's kind of what they're weighing now, because historically things for weight loss have been considered cosmetic.
Which is unfortunate. I mean, it's a cosmetic thing. I always found it really interesting with medicine. Like, you can lose a bunch of weight and that won't be covered, but the surgery to tighten up your excess skin, somehow that's a medical necessity. I'm like, well...
Yeah, right.
It's just weird how they look at these things and what they do. The drug is called tirzepatide. I know it's Eli Lilly, and that's approved to treat type 2 diabetes. It's called Mounjaro. I think I've seen the ads for this thing. And you can lose 16%. Yeah, 16% of your body weight for chronic weight management. But here's the thing, right? You got to be extremely wealthy to be able to afford this. And to ask insurance at this point to come in and do it for everybody. It sounds like something, I don't know, a particular presidential administration would think is a great idea, that this is a cure for diabetes, but it's also a cure for obesity, and every American should be on it, and it shouldn't cost you anything.
Well, when you think about the numbers, it's hard to quantify really big numbers. So I was looking at an example on an interview the other day. What if you have an employer that has 100 employees on a health plan, and their whole health plan spend is about $1.5 million? And then you think about that employer and you say, well, if those 100 people are, if it's a normal slice of America, then we're going to have 66 of them that are overweight or obese that could potentially benefit from this drug. And then you do that 66 times $70,000. Holy moly, that's multiples of what the whole health plan is.
Right.
So you can see where this is a potential grenade that you could just drop right into a health plan, and it's the next blockbuster drug coming, or classic drug. Anyway, it's not going to surprise me at all if it hits $100 billion. Yeah,
right, exactly. We find a new way to use something off label to help people lose weight and maintain less capacity, less adipose tissue, but. In America, I've said this for 20 years, and I remember having a nutrition on laughing at me thinking I'm stupid, but I said, listen, someday we're going to come up with a magic pill. If we just eat ourselves up, because the average American, 80% of us are obese. Well, if 100% are obese, isn't that the new normal? That's like from a mathematical standpoint, that's the new average. Right. And if we just all got on the plan and got fat, then if we can just drag along with our gravy-stained fingers and Cheeto lips, the rest of America, 15% to become obese like the rest of us, then, we've cured the problem right there. It's like, well, now we're normal. And I always said, we're going to come up with a magic pill to cure whatever it is, because there's a lot of money in that. And here we are years later, and we've done that.
Yeah, we have. I mean, it does appear. Now, then again, there have been other cases where there's something that looks like a miracle drug, and then we find out after we get a bunch of people on it. Oops.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it doesn't work out all that well. But I think the other thing would happen is this: is like, well, if I lost 16% of my weight as a result of this, then too, which is substantial, I can just eat more. I think that's what's going to happen. You're going to have people that seriously, right? Aren't they going to go, well, I'm losing weight, great, it means I can eat more food, as opposed to, wow, I'm eating what I used to eat and I'm losing weight. I'll just eat more food at this point. And now we're going to have to come with another pill that's even stronger, and so it goes. Because largely we like to kill ourselves with knives and forks in this country.
That's our thing. That's what we're doing with this unprecedented wealth. And you've got you do have precedent for what you're saying. If you look at people that have surgery for their bariatric type surgeries, there is a percentage of them that somehow, even with a smaller stomach now, they still manage to get back to their pre-surgery weight. So
Yeah, well, that's it, right? We'll eat ourselves back. I'm just going to eat right through that band until it explodes and snaps like a rubber band or like a package or something like that. That's what we do in this country is we'll just abuse our bodies. And, we talk about gun violence in America. It's a very serious issue, but really no one's saying we kill more people with knives and forks and sporks than we do guns and bullets in the United States. Paul Seegert from PCS Healthcare Advisors on the show this morning on 700 WLW on whether or not insurance companies are going to cover these new class of drugs, diabetes drugs that are being used off-label to cause people to lose weight. And in some cases, as much as 16-20% or more. It's incredible, but the cost is about $6,000 a month. Will those costs come down as more people do this? And will it solve the obesity epidemic, which is the biggest health crisis in America? It wasn't long ago where we talked about smoking and heart disease, and heart disease is part of this, but we could likely get heart disease not from eating as opposed to smoking cigarettes. I don't know if that's making progress or not, or swapping out one vice for another. We'll let someone else decide that. But Paul, if you're trying to manage these healthcare costs, every day there's something new product that comes out that challenges the confines of that budget. And we've talked for a long time on how broken the system is, and it doesn't look like there's any chance it's going to get better. As we continue to come up with more drugs people want, that further increases an already stressed out system, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And you look at we certainly need some reforms. We need patent reform. We need complete transparency around you need to be able to look at a drug and know what it costs, not just what your copay is. And you need to know a breakdown of where all those dollars are going. If people were to see that, so that $6,000 doesn't go all go back to the manufacturer. A huge portion of it does not, which doesn't really support the R&D argument. And we allow certain things in this country that other countries don't. We need to solve that because it's an absolute storm cloud on the horizon for health plans, but I think for the whole economy. We've approved multiple drugs, I think 4, since August in this country that cost north of $2 million per patient.
What?
And we have about 12 more in the pipeline. And you think about that same employer with 100 people on his plan.
$2 million.
If he has 1 or 2 that need that, his plan is just way
you're
upside.
screwed. What drug? What are we talking about here? What kind of drug?
They're gene therapies. So, you could have someone that has a very serious condition that's very rare. And instead of being on long-term chronic medications, they take this one time and it cures it. And, that's amazing. It's fantastic. It's incredible. It's wonderful. And it's financially scary to the system.
Well, I can't really put that on layaway, can I?
Yeah, there's no care credit for that.
Yeah, I don't know. You're paying on installments there. I don't know if they're going to get their money back at $2 million a pill, but God, it's amazing though. We're doing not only the genetic studies and we're finding things. I read recently this week that we're coming up closer. If not, they found the protein, I guess, that causes Alzheimer's, and they're able to isolate that. And we may have a drug in the works that's going to cure Alzheimer's. I can't believe that. Yeah,
we have a couple. There's that whole class of drugs. There's a few that are in the works, and I think all of this points to this. We're creating a class system in healthcare when we make things so expensive and allow them to be the system to function the way it does. Because these Alzheimer's drugs, as an example, they're not going to be available in rural areas. You're going to have to be in an urban area, is the way that it's looking right now, and going to have some pretty nice high-end insurance to have access to us.
Well, it's not only that, too, in the rural areas, as you know, too, we've talked about this in the past, Paul Seegert from PCS Healthcare Advisors, that rural hospitals are closing at an alarming rate. It's hard if you're a female and you're listening in rural Ohio or Indiana, Kentucky, or wherever we get here on 700 WLW, that OBGYN practices are literally drying up. I mean, it's going to go back to midwives and pretty much in rural areas.
Yeah, 50% now of hospitals in rural areas cannot staff their OB facilities, their labor and delivery.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge failing in this country, the healthcare system. And, we often talk about the time State of the Unions occur, and occasionally we'll give lip service to it. But we're too busy fighting about, a culture wars to pay attention to what Americans really need, unfortunately. And healthcare would be the big one at the top of the list. Paul Seegert, PCS Healthcare Advisors, advising businesses all over the country about how to keep those costs down, and frequent contributor here to the show. Thanks so much, Paul. Be well. Appreciate you.